I am Kristen, aka the Mighty Aquarian. As you've probably seen on the video here on YouTube here, I am a writer, and I am using this channel to explore other avenues besides what is on the written page in creativity here. One of these things here is I am doing this video. One of my professors back in college said not to do a countdown list in writing because it's cheap and clickbait. So so I went ahead and take the advice. The problem is that yeah, like about 3 months later, I read an article he wrote and published, and oh, it was a countdown list. Really? So I am basically doing a countdown list, but I'm doing it in video form, so it's not exactly writing, is it? And reason why I'm doing this countdown list is, and a few others that I do have planned, is because I do believe that part of being able to see inside the head of a writer is to see their influences. And I do have to admit that some of my influences are really bad movies. Well, not everything on this list is bad. There is some stuff that was critically acclaimed, and for the audiences that did see it, they did actually enjoy and like. There is a lot of really bad, it's good stuff on here, and I will admit that a lot of this list is guilty pleasures. But the art is good in its own way if it does influence, in my opinion. So I wanted to go ahead and share some of what I enjoyed here, and the reason I do call this under the radar, or more or less hidden gems, is because these are movies that probably have not been heard of, or if you've heard of them, it's like, yeah, it's in passing. Have you really seen them? I mean, really? Have you? Probably not. So I would like to go ahead. I do have 15 that I decided to list here, but I do have a few honorable mentions that when I did finish putting the list together, realized I really couldn't go without talking about. So I would like to, of course, mention them before I, hit the actual 15. And very quickly, though some of these movies do date back to the 60s, a spoiler warning is in effect, as there will be minor ones throughout this video. You have been warned. My first honorable mention here is shock treatment. No one has been able to agree much on what it exactly is, beyond the fact that it is the movie that Richard O'Brien used to follow up the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which of course started out as the stage musical The Rocky Horror Show. Some have called it a sequel, some have called it a spiritual follow-up, some have called it many things. And everybody agrees, though, it is the movie that followed Rocky Horror Picture Show. It has actors from the first movie, O'Brien himself, Patricia Quinn, Lil Nell, who play characters who are not the ones they played in Rocky Horror, and then we have the characters of Brad and Janet, who were in the first movie, but are played by different actors, Cliff DeYoung and Jessica Harper, to be precise. It's interesting. I mean, it's got some ideas that, a lot of ideas in this movie that kind of went nowhere and are interesting if we picked one and stuck with it there with the movie. There are some good songs in it, as would be expected from O'Brien and his writing. There's a lot of general weirdness, a whole lot more than Rocky Horror. If you are watching it to get a true blue sequel to Rocky Horror, you will be definitely disappointed. But it is an interesting film here. As you can see, I do own it. I do enjoy it on some level, but it's definitely not as good as the original. And if you're okay with weird, that's your film. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Yeah. This was one of the first of many stabs to do a jukebox musical out of Beatles music. And, well, it was interesting. I watched this first when I was 10 years old, and of course I was 10 years old. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Watching it now, I question 10-year-old me's taste. But I do still enjoy it. There are a number of reasons to enjoy it, even though this movie's really, really not good. One of those would be the music. There, if you want to find where Jukebox Musical has done justice to the Beatles' music, this one is very well done. A lot of stuff is done by the Bee Gees. In my opinion, a very underrated band, finally getting some appreciation nowadays. Peter Frampton does some very comparable remakes there, and of course, Aerosmith. Aerosmith is probably the best thing about this movie. So if you want really good remakes of and covers of Beatles songs, it's good to go. Just don't expect much on the plot, and well, yeah, the ending. Pass the Ammo. Interesting film here. Has Tim Curry, very early role by the late Bill Paxton, Annie Potts playing Tim Curry's wife, and that chick from the Crocodile Dundee films. Came out about the time of the Baker scandal there, and television evangelism, and this movie kind of tries to make a point with it, but the message does get lost. The performances are pretty good though, and there are some really great one-liners here. Tim Curry, of course, is Tim Curry and awesome at being that, and so it's worth just a watch just to see the performance. And there is one spot in there where Tim Curry is getting on his evangelist high horse, and I swear he's tapping in the Frankenfurter as a priest. If that's not worth just sitting down and watching that film, I don't know what is. Pass the Ammo. Very hard to find. I've tried to find it on home video now. I haven't seen it out since VHS. I'll tell you how long ago that is, but if you can find it and get a chance to watch it, it is definitely an interesting watch. Can't guarantee you'll enjoy all of it, but just for the Tim Curry stuff, it is worth the watch. Okay, those were my honorable mentions. I would now like to get into the meat and heart of this list, and we will go ahead and start with my pick for number 15. My pick for number 15 is The Hunger, directed by Tony Scott as his feature film debut, starring the late, great David Bowie, Catherine Deneuve, Blink If You'll Miss It appearance by Willem Dafoe, Susan Sarandon, and Cliff DeYoung, which, upon anybody who's paying attention and is very familiar with cult classics and videos, would know that Cliff DeYoung played Brad in Shock Treatment, and of course Susan Sarandon played Janet in Rocky Horror, so here we are, we have them in a film together. And on top of that, if that isn't just good enough here for you, they play a couple. Yes, let that sink in for a second. Yes, but this is a vampire movie looking to do another concept, which is very interesting in the fact that basically eternal life doesn't necessarily mean eternal youth, and what the consequences could be for that. After that, it's a bit of a mixed bag, though it is known for a few things. One is Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bajas. Everybody's very familiar with that scene, or anyone who's familiar with the film, I should say. And then, of course, there is the lesbian scene, and I'll just leave it there. At number 14, we have what Terry Gilliam loosely refers to as his Trilogy of Imagination. Now, I know there's 3 films up here instead of 1, henceforth the trilogy, but just to state this is 1. They really do work if you do watch them as a trilogy, as well as the standalone films. They are wonderful as well, but as a trilogy, it just elevates them that much higher. And number 2 It's my list. Nobody said that one film had to sit here in one position. So, anyway, um, basically, you have the first one, which is Time Bandits, which shows us the fanciful youth of the time, fantasies of the young child. You do then go to middle age, working and basically a drone for the man in Brazil, and the fantasies you use to escape life at that point. And then, of course, we hit the nostalgic old man and fanciful rememberings, maybe a little too fantastical, in the adventures of Baron Munchausen. As with any good Terry Gilliam film, the American filmmaker with British sensibilities and member of Monty Python, those themes are very prevalent in of these films, and of course they are all, though facing some serious topics, very, very funny, especially the third movie and the first film there. Brazil, obviously anybody who's familiar with the film knows that it's very Kafkaesque, very much 1984 in its feel, but still has very, very funny parts. If you get a chance, check them out. Also, as I said, not everything in here is bad. All of these films have been critically acclaimed, so it's also a very entertaining watch. So if you have an afternoon free where you can sit down and just kill about 6-7 hours, it's great to sit here and just watch them back to back. As I have said, it does elevate the experience of watching them, but it does not diminish the greatness that each film is. So, Imagination Trilogy, Terry Gilliam, definite recommendation. Death Race 2000. Very corny 70s film, directed by B-movie great Paul Bartle, and of course produced by the other B-movie great Roger Corman. How can this go wrong, B-movie wise? Really can't. Basically, this film stars David Carradine, Paul Bartel in a small role, Mary Woolvernaw, Sylvester Stallone in his pre-Rocky days in a actually fairly significant role here, and a brief appearance by the director John Landis. Society now copes with basically this dystopic future by following a race, a death race, as we would go. Yeah, this is sounding very Hunger Games. Well, this was Hunger Games before the Hunger Games, with cars, because it was the 70s, and we liked cars. Basically, this race is founded by the president of what is formerly the United States, originally named Mr. President, and basically has stars that are basically like any rock star or movie star today. Folks like Frankenstein or Machine Gun Joe, Matilda the Hun, Nero the Hero, a revolutionary Thomasina Paine, who is a descendant of, you guessed it, Thomas Paine, and her great-granddaughter, Annie Smith, good old Calamity Jane Kelly, and what is probably my favorite of the whole bunch, Herman the German. And good old Herman here is played by Love Boat Gopher and future politician Fred Grady. Yes, Gopher is in this movie, playing a character called Herman the German. Who doesn't love that? There is a scoring system involved in this race, and the movie does briefly cover it, though not going in detail. Women in any age character are 10 points more than men. Not making me feel real loved right now, but continuing on, if you are in your teens, you're worth 40. If you are under 12 years old, you're worth 70. And if you are over 75 years of age, you are a whopping 100 points. Apparently 110 if you're a woman, because, well, yeah. Movie has not aged well in that category, as well some of the other movies on this list will show that as well. Another fun fact about this film is that Sylvester Stallone, fancying himself a screenwriter, um, which he would later on prove in the screenplay of Rocky, decided he was going to try his hand out in this film with some dialogue here. Writing great lines like, "You know, Myrna, some people think you're cute, but me, I think you're just one very large baked potato. I hold the power of life or death. Yeah, well, I happen to hold the clam sauce. Hey, cornball! You lousy stinking dirtball." Yeah, this is dialogue written by the man who a year later would put out a movie with the award-winning screenplay, Rocky. And in a show of how free-for-all movie making was in the 1970s, the two stars of the film, Sylvester Stallone and David Carradine, because the stuntmen refused to drive the street illegal, souped-up cars on the road, said, we'll drive them instead. Because that's what you want your stars doing. Driving cars. Doing stunts. On a road. In cars. That are modified so much. The stuntmen, the men trained to drive these things, will not even get in them. My number 12 pick is a little film here called Eating Raoul, which the title is a spoiler in itself. But, hey, what can we say? This lovely film was co-written, directed, and stars our good buddy Paul Bartle, because of course it does. Co-starring Mary Woolfenau, with Robert Beltran of Star Trek Voyager fame, Ed Begley Jr., someone who started a lot of cool classics after he left St. Elsewhere, Buck Henry, and Edie McClure, who everyone who's familiar with 80s films would know her as Ed Rooney's secretary in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yes, and what is she playing in this movie? She's playing a swinger. We'll let that one sit in for a minute. Yeah. So basically this movie is based on a couple played by Paul and Mary. They're a very married, very conservative couple. Don't even sleep in the same bed together, and occasionally dabble in the hotness of hugging and kissing. Even maybe every once in a while, holding hands. Woo! They are planning to start up a restaurant, live in a building where there's a lot of swinging happening, and decide to come up with an unconventional way to make the money to purchase their own restaurant. Hijinks ensue. This is a very interesting film. Very funny. Very, very black humor, as it is a black comedy. So if you're not into that, it is one of a lighter black comedy, but still. So if you're looking to dip your toe into the pool that is black comedy, this is a great gateway movie to go ahead and test out your palate, see if you like it. You might find yourself surprised at how twisted you really are. Southland Tales, written and directed by Richard Kelly. His second film after Donnie Darko. And of course, like every second film, because it didn't live up to and or was different from the original, people were like, yeah, no. Richard Kelly has been known to mention that this film is his misunderstood child, and I tend to agree. I think it is a very well done film, though not flawless, and a very solid second effort. The movie is very loosely based off the Book of Revelations there, and basically begins by the fact that we are told we are living in a post-World War III world where It was started off Independence Day 2005, where Abilene and El Paso, Texas were nuked. We are following the adventures of boxer Santaros and his mistress, Crystal Now, a psychic porn star turned reality show talks person, somewhat like Oprah, but more scandalous. The movie itself was supposed to be 3 parts of what was supposed to be a 9-part series, consisting of 6 graphic novels and then the movie, which contained 3 parts. Richard Kelly did have to whittle it down to 3 graphic novels and the movie being 3 parts, but still it was very ambitious in its time to combine different mediums, henceforth a graphic novel and a movie, to tell a complete story. It is still pretty fascinating today, from what he was able to get done from, even though he had to cut it down. No, it's not Donnie Darko. It is its own unique thing, and that is one of the beautiful things about independent filmmaking, is that you get a different film every time from the same people. So this is the end of the first part here of this video, but never fear, I should be having the second part up here within the next day or two. Until then, you've been great. Thank you for playing along today. I will see you soon. TTFN.